Before we begin our discussion, let us first understand exactly what exchange-traded funds are and how they differ from mutual funds as well. We'll also talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Dr. Sharath Kohli, Senior Economist, Nikhil Sethi, MD, Zuvomo Private Limited, crypto advisor. Also with us on the show, Atulya Bhatt, Chief Marketing Officer of BayuCoin, with us on the program as well. Ajit Khurana, founder of Reflexical, also joins us on the show. I'm going to go to the big screen and try and explain what exactly we are dealing with here. Exchanges and of course the cryptocurrency factor thrown in is going to yield a lot of regulatory challenges, but how can they be covered? How can they be managed? What are ETFs is the big question. Well, an exchange traded fund is a type of pooled investment security that operates much like a mutual fund. But of course, on the other hand, you would have a cryptocurrency, whereas on this side or in this particular area, you have the regular money as we know it. Unlike mutual funds, ETFs can be purchased or sold on a stock exchange the same way that a regular stock can be sold or bought at an exchange. So it is very similar, very analogous to a conservative or an established exchange. ETFs can contain all types of investments, including stocks, commodities, or bonds as well. So very similar to what we've been dealing with. In that regard, this obviously creates a lot of ease to understand how ETFs operate. The first ETF was the SPDR, the S&P 500 ETF, which tracks the S&P 500 index as well. Moving on, ETFs offer low expense ratios and fewer broker commissions than buying the stocks individually. See, obviously the brokerage part as well as the commission part is something that gets taken care of. There are perhaps lesser cost involved in that. Dr. Kohli, coming back to you. Well, there was a time very recently, Dr. Kohli, that cryptocurrency had almost seen a sunset in a number of countries in the world. But this reconciliation, this consolidation which is spurring up with the SEC and of course a number of other cryptocurrency platforms, what kind of a resurgence would this be categorized as, and would you also call it as some sort of a colloquial or a proverbial comeback?
Thanks, Puneet. Undoubtedly this is resurgence of cryptocurrencies, because an ETF being launched which is based on Bitcoins is definitely, you're putting a stamp of sort of recognition to Bitcoin. Now there are two scenarios, Ravi. There is an international scenario vis-a-vis US and other countries, and there is an Indian scenario as we are talking in India right now. So let me talk of the Western scenario or the international scenario for now. Well, there are a lot of countries which do recognize these cryptocurrencies. There are ATMs in certain countries where you can withdraw, you can go and transact in some countries. So I think in terms of recognition, the cryptos are at different stages and recognized differently by different countries. But for SEC to accept applications on ETFs is definitely a big move. We all know that US is the biggest financial market in the world. And I think if that is a torchlight, then I think rest of the countries could follow suit, or at least they can get some confidence of the fact that if SEC is recognizing these ETFs or probably contributing to launch of ETFs, then it is high time that we also give some kind of respect to cryptocurrencies. I think it's great news for my fellow panelists who deal in cryptocurrencies, who are either running an exchange or who are advising or who are trading in whatever way they are connected with. Because you're right, as far as India is concerned, crypto had almost seen a sunset, and it is in a very complex situation in India. We all know that Reserve Bank of India is up against it. If left to Reserve Bank, cryptocurrencies would have left India a long time ago, and it would have been declared illegal, thanks to the government of India, which has had a bit of a neutral stance. So I think as far as India is concerned, it is hanging in between Reserve Bank's totally anti-crypto approach and government's neutral approach, is somewhere in between that, which is why a lot of exchanges, a lot of people who were regular traders, a lot of investors had pulled back, and a lot of people who were in the business of minting as well, they had also pulled back. A lot of investment had gone a waste in the recent months. For that, I know a lot of people who had invested. So all in all, I think a piece of finally good news. We know that crypto runs on news. Suddenly, somewhere around the world, one country recognizes, the prices start moving up, and somewhere there is a negative news and the prices start going down. But my only concern is, which I'm sure my panelists would like to address to that concern, is that unlike other ETFs, for example, gold ETF, gold ETF is obviously backed by, there is, we know in MCX if gold is traded, it is obviously backed by solid gold. But that is not the case with crypto. It may be backed by bitcoins, but then behind bitcoins is just a mathematical formula. There is nothing very solid, very solidly fundamental, I would say, which I'm sure my panelists would like to comment upon far better than I do, because they deal in crypto and they are connected to the world of crypto. But having said that, great piece of news, and I think it should excite all the crypto operators, people connected with the crypto industry across the world. Vineet.
Dr. Kohli, same question for you. What are the implications on the Indian market because of this move? Gone are the days when we actually, had any cascading effect, when something happened in the US, and obviously it was seen in India as well. We have our own ecosystem.
Well, Ajit has brought up some very, very important issues, and so have the other two panelists, distinguishing between an asset and an exchange. The problem with RBI was that they did not want this to go through, because obviously they could not have had a parallel currency running, and you call it as a cryptocurrency, basically. I'm putting in inverted commas. Whereas they were fine if this is called an asset class. But the problem is because it's got an international root. If it is called cryptocurrency in America, in Singapore, and other places, it has to be called cryptocurrency. So that was one objection with RBI, and it's probably create a parallel currency system, which obviously RBI is the sole and only sovereign regulator of currencies in India. One. Two, the problem here was that this was promoting illegitimate activities. We saw terrorist funding, we saw all sorts of nefarious transactions being done for illegitimate purposes. So that was other concern. There were security issues. Now, coming back to what Ajit said about the tax aspect, Indians are allowed $250,000 per annum under the liberalized remittance scheme, which every Indian can remit to anywhere in the world. Now, the problem there, I would specifically speak to Ajit as well, apart from the viewers and the rest of the panelists, is that it is liberalized. There's no doubt. You go to your bank, there is a form called Form A2. You pick up that form, and you have to tick mark the box that what is the purpose of remitting this money. Now, the billion-dollar question here would be, would remittance for investment in an SEC recognized exchange, that is in a Bitcoin ETF, in a crypto ETF, be allowed under the liberalized remittance scheme? So that is the basic question. My own feeling is that RBI may have reservations. You can invest in a stock, you can invest in a property from India, you can invest, you can send for medical purposes, you can send for education purposes. Obviously, their TCS rates are different. They range from 5% to 20%. They have been revised recently. But will RBI allow investment in a crypto ETF from India? I think we will have to, because it's a very, very recent development, only last night. So we will have to wait and see whether this is included in that list or not. So to answer the question, whether there will be Indian interest evincing in this will purely depend on the regulatory mechanism and the regulatory freedom that is given by RBI to cover this under LRS, because this has to come under LRS. There is no other way you can send money outside India. So that is one point. But I think the more pertinent point remains, as far as India is concerned, that when will the bridge between RBI's perception and Government of India perception of cryptocurrency be bridged? I think that gap still remains, although Dr. Shaktikant Das, who's the governor of RBI, was formerly connected with Finance Ministry. And I think, but per se, because of the reasons I described earlier, RBI is very strictly against any kind of formal recognition being given to cryptocurrency. However, Government of India's argument was that because this is based on blockchain, we can use this technology, blockchain technology can be used, but to allow to completely recognize or to completely declare cryptocurrency as illegal, we should hold our guns for some time. So I think that gap is still standing there. But as I said earlier, SEC being part of a regulatory authority of the world's largest financial market, I think this recognition should be, I mean, if I ask somebody in a very informal term, by no means this is an advice. If somebody wants to pick up Bitcoin tonight or whatever, you can pick up and you can expect some kind of rally coming in. But then, as I said, news keep pouring in for these cryptocurrencies from all sorts of quarters. And my other question which I have, which is not clarified, is that this is going to be a BTC based ETF. Well, there are thousands of other cryptocurrencies. What happens to them? Will SEC or will another ETF application be filed for Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency for that matter? The answer so far is no, because this has only been given for Bitcoin. So does that mean, well, I think Ajit has an answer. I would love to hear him out on this. But the problem is that are you giving only to Bitcoin? Then what happens to other cryptocurrencies? That's my other question. And I think as far as India is concerned, we will have to wait and see, Vineet, whether Indians will be able to participate in this party. Because if you hold a Bitcoin in India today and you are doing it by whatever you are probably paying through the bank, what happens to the exchanges? Will this also dilute the role of crypto exchanges? Will people move away from these exchanges? I would rather go through the ETF route rather than coming into question with Binance or any other crypto exchange for that matter. So these are the questions which I feel time will answer, although I saw Ajit nodding his head for he's got answer to all of the questions.
All right, well, we've run out of time, but we'd definitely like to hear from you. All right, well, that sums it up very nicely, and it's also made Dr. Kohli give a thumbs up to you. We've run out of time. We'll take a very short break on that note. News and updates continue on the other side.